Hello and welcome to the Ministry Outreach of Living Water Counseling in Lake Worth Beach, Florida. Pastor Norm Wise starts us on a two-part series called 7 Healthy Habits of a Healthy Home. Let's join Pastor Wise at First Church West in Plantation, Florida.
You may be seated. You should at this time have a notebook. If you do not have a notebook, then if you raise your hand, I'm sure we get somebody to get a notebook to you. It will be our guide this evening. If you have a pen, that would also be good, and there are some pens on the table, because there will be some exercises to do tonight. I find that if people do stuff, they stay awake more. So pens and notebooks are back there if you need them. We're going to be talking about what are the 7 habits of a healthy home, and the home, of course, includes the relationship of our children, so we're going to talk about that as well as the relationship between mom and dad and husband and wife. First of all, how many people here can confess that having a good marriage is a lot more complicated than you thought it was at 16, right? Yeah. Some way or another, it didn't quite work out to be as simple as you thought. Now, some of you haven't quite got there yet, and you're saying, well, I don't know if I want to go there, so you're just kind of coming here tonight to check out the land. Some of you aren't married yet, saying, well, maybe we should read the instruction manual before we begin to drive. Well, you are very wise if you're here under those circumstances. The first question tonight is going to be, and I want you to be answering it, you can start answering it anytime you find that's the first question in your notebook, but what does make a good marriage? We're going to hear from a few folks to kind of get you started, so you might say, well, I don't know, I didn't come here to write anything or think, I just came for you to talk to me. Well, once you get over that, we're going to help you here, but here's the opinion of some people.
By pronouncing man and wife.
In our 56 years with the same woman.
You may now get your bride.
We're asking people today, what makes a good marriage?
Marriage.
Communication, prayer,
Dedication, loyalty, respect.
well, what could you possibly want from me?
A lot of communication, and a lot of support for each other. If you don't support each other and you don't have communication, you don't have a marriage.
Good marriage. A lot of love and trust. Yes.
You agree with that? All right, thanks, guys.
Communication, honesty, variety. Teaching variety.
What makes a good marriage?
Good communication.
Being married to a good woman, the next one right there.
The husband and wife life.
Love.
Somebody else. I don't know.
Give and take proposition. Understanding each other's faults and looking over.
Gotta have fun.
A 50-50 partnership where 2 people are best friends, they love each other, they share everything, they communicate.
Okay, your turn. Write down the things that you think would make a good marriage. It's right on page 1, has 1 at the bottom. And what makes a good marriage? Write down a few thoughts right now. By the way, what you engage in, you keep. What you don't engage in, you never had. So go ahead and write down your own thoughts. If you were interviewed by that guy at the microphone, what would you have written? What would have been your first few comments you would have made? What makes a good marriage? Okay, give me a few. What makes a good marriage, somebody? Okay, communication. Gordon.
Number one, God is the center of your
God at the center of your marriage. Each giving 100%. We're going to up the ante from the person in the film, okay? Yeah. Anybody else? Yes. Acceptance of the other person for who they are, okay? Understanding. Peace, yeah, okay. Forgiveness, yeah, forgiveness is big. Unconditional love, yes. Sacrificial love. Sacrificial and unconditional. Commitment, okay. Trust. Huh? Adjusting. Adjusting yourself? Yeah. Okay, yes. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, a lot of times, those are all good answers. We're going to be looking at 7 habits that kind of incorporate a lot of them. And the first question is, what is a habit? And that is a question that we will have to figure out. And let's see if we can get it to cooperate. The 7 habits are here. They are sanity, stability, spirituality, Sabbath. Now, one of the things that is going to sound strange to some of you folks, but basically these 4 all have to do with the personal, individual stability, sanity, Sabbath keeping, and spirituality. We have to individually get those things straight before we can go on to the rest, which is the fact that we have commitment, friendship, and that little heart up there is passion. And yes, these are the realm of our relationship, of our family, relationship of our spouse, relationship with those we love. But this is the foundation. And it's only when we get that foundation straight that we can really make commitment, friendship, and passion work. And a lot of times what it is we think that marriage itself has the power to give us what these give us. In other words, we're trying to get sanity and stability and spirituality and even maybe peace of mind all from the marriage. Marriage doesn't have that power in it. Doesn't have the ability to give that to you. And that's one of the major lies of our society. We're saying she, he, she. Just want to avoid all prejudice tonight. It gets very complicated these days. Is driving me crazy. Right? No, you're choosing insanity. No one can make you crazy. You make yourself crazy. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that and why the implications are there. But this is one of those important things that we don't feel it's that way, but we're going to see that by accepting our individuality, our ability to make some important choices, by the grace of God, that, yeah, that's the basis of a good and healthy home. But what's a habit? A habit is based on 3 things. First, desire. There has to be something we want. And the thing is, when we're even very small children, we will end up wanting something and we'll have certain desires. And then what happens is we start learning some way to meet this desire and to satisfy it. And we also acquire the skills to get it. For instance, the young child has a desire for something sweet. They grow into the knowledge that the cookie jar has something sweet in it. And then they get the skill to climb up on the chair over the counter to the cookie jar. And as they start doing that repetitively, they find that eating cookies creates pleasure. And that begins building a connection in their brain. Cookie, pleasure. Cookie, pleasure. Then what also happens is they skin their knee. They start crying. They say, "Mommy, my knee hurts." And she says, "Here, have a cookie. It'll make you feel better." Which it does, in fact. And then when they're 30, they wonder why their refrigerator's full of cookies. Well, what has happened is that they have become aware that cookies are a way to kill pain. Cookies are a way to take away the hurt. Cookies are a way to make life better. And what it is we start picking up a whole group of survival habits, and our life, and these things, just some of them are good, some of them are neutral, some of them are bad, but these are things, and do you ever notice how many things you do and you don't think about it? You just do it automatically. Do you remember how you got to work in the morning? Maybe. If you're like my wife, she likes to take a different way every time. Most of us, it's automatic pilot. Have you ever ended up at work on a day off because you forgot what day it was? You just kind of drove your car there? Yeah. Oh, yeah. For Terry, that's the 7-Eleven. We drive there so often, we just kind of pull in automatically. 7-Eleven, pull in. But you see, we have these habits, and that helps. Habits aren't bad. Habits are part of the way that God gave us to handle a very complex role. But we can begin to have some habits that are no longer working for us, but against us. And those habits also are beginning to cause harm, not only to ourselves, but to the people in our lives. Well, what is a habit? It's a recurrent, often unconscious pattern of behavior that is acquired through frequent repetition. In other words, we've done it, and we've done it, and we've done it, and we don't even think about it anymore. You know, usually when we get into an argument with a person and we call them a name, do we think about what name? Do we go through mentally, intellectually, say, okay, I have 55 bad names I could call a person? We don't really do that, do we? What happens is we have a certain name that immediately pops to our lips because it fits the emotion and it's a track inside, and we automatically say, "You stupid idiot!" Why? Because that's the derogatory term that we have used repetitively enough to where it comes off our lips and we don't think about it. We're not thinking about it. We could have said a talk and you said, "You moron." But why don't we use moron? Well, we don't have a habit of using moron. That's what our spouse calls us in return. Different words, different program, same type of thing. And we're not thinking about it, we just do it. And we've done it because every time we got in a fight, forever. Now also, by the way, this is also it. Some of us had mom and dads who fought. Anybody else? My mom and dad fought a lot. Anybody else can say that? Yeah. And you know, they fought so repetitively that my sister and I, we knew their argument. You know, 16, this is true. My mom and dad are divorced. They have been divorced for like 6 or 7 years. My dad's main purpose of visitation was to repeat the argument they had had while they were married. He didn't really visit with us. He just came to fight with mom because I think he missed it. You know, it was something that gave her assurance that the universe is still round and everything's okay, and yes, we can still have this argument. And I think he was really determined he was going to win it sooner or later. Although I don't know how, because all the issues were over, okay? So we would sit there on the couch as mom and dad went into their fight, and we would just give each other the words. You know, he would say this, and we'd say, and she's going to say. You know, it was an entertaining game. Then when the fight was over, he would go home, and we said, that was a wonderful visit. Eventually, my sister got married, and that helped because then we could visit my dad over at his house, at her house, and so that made it much better, except then when I came home, my mother had to have the argument with me. Okay, I could be the clone dad, and we could have the argument all over again because she was convinced that he would have told me his side of the story, and she had to make sure I hadn't been brainwashed. My dad, after my mom is dead, has me on the front porch of his house, right? We're swinging back and forth, and he starts trying to have the same argument with me. I go, time out. She's dead. It's over. Face it. I'm not doing this. It's really over. I think maybe by the time he died, he got that point. Well, we can get pretty crazy, can't we? Sometimes, have you ever had the thing of when you go through a whole massive thing with a person and you wake up the following day and you go, what was I doing? Why did I say that? And in fact, you say to yourself, how did we do that again? Because, by the way, have you noticed, when you get into a pattern of an argument, it does, in fact, become like reruns on TV. Over and over and over again. You're going to have the very same fight. Well, a behavior, a habit is an act a behavioral response, practice, or custom established in one's repertoire. And repertoire is just a group of songs you need to know so well you don't need to practice them anymore. By frequent repetition of the same act. Some of us are turtles and some are skunks. So the moment that a person offends us, without thought, we're going to just blow up and make it as smelly as possible so they will run away. We will huff and we will puff. We will get aggravated. We will get in their face. We will explode. And the whole purpose is just make them run away. That's the whole purpose. It's purely a defense mechanism. Others of us are turtles. And the moment there's tension, get in your shell, hide, run away, shut down, don't talk. You've never done that, have you? Now let's remember, you turtles, all turtles are living in microwaves. So in the end, it gets very messy. Okay? Very messy. And also very explosive. The people who go postal are always the quiet ones. Those are the ones that really blow. Well, what habits impact your family? I want you to give some thought to that. I have there a page that simply has a whole group. If you couldn't think of any bad habits, I listed bad habits. How redundant could you get there, okay? If you want to add some to that list, you can. This isn't an inspired list, but if you're saying, habit, what bad habit? I don't have any bad habits. I bet you could find some bad habits here you have, okay? And then also some good habits. I didn't want to be imbalanced, but on page 4, there is a place for you to list the good and bad habits that are impacting your family at the present time. Go ahead and just list some good and bad habits. You can draw a line right down the middle of the page if you want and say good habits on one side, bad habits on another. Good habit is we all brush our teeth, and boy, I'm glad we do. Okay? A bad habit is when someone loses their temper around here, someone always gets hurt. So, well, you could just, work on your own bad habits to begin with, Jim. But go ahead and put down the bad and good habits that you think that are working in your home. We'll give you a few minutes. You have 1 minute. Okay, Some of you are saying, why is he having us write? You can only change a problem you admit you have. And I am not clairvoyant. I cannot look at you and go, I know your problem. But sometimes even you don't know your problem because it gets very hard to listen or hear ourselves. And in fact, we're afraid to face our problems, and it's called denial. And you have to understand, emotionally, there is no better state next to recovery than denial. The rest of everything is real messy and real painful, and I am inviting you to the pain tonight. Because it's only through the pain that you'll ever recover. And the problem is denial doesn't cure, it just kills the pain. There is a difference if you go into a hospital and you've got an infection and you have gangrene going up your arm and the doctor says, here's some pain-killing pills. Just keep taking these until the arm falls off. That would be malpractice, right? Now the fact is you wouldn't feel any pain. Every time you feel a little twinge of pain in the arm, pop a pill. No pain. And if there's no pain, there must not be a problem, right? No, it just means you're dying. You just don't know you're dying. Your marriage could be dying. You don't know your marriage is dying. Your relationship with your kids is dying, but you don't know your relationship with your kid is dying. You feel fine. All you got to do is pop the pill. And some of these habitual habits, they're just popping the pill. You see, we think they're operating systems when really they're viruses. Now, by the way, cruise control works really well, except if you're on a mountain and you're heading for the guardrails. Okay? And the bottom line is, at that point, you want to disengage cruise control, and you got to start thinking about what you're doing, because cruise control is no longer an appropriate response. So why am I trying to get you to think about your habits? Why am I trying to get you to think about your habits? Not habits generally, not habits universally. Your habits. Because you're the only person that could decide, this habit is destructive to me. This habit is destructive to my family. This habit is destructive to my children. And you know, I see tonight that it's a destructive habit, and I want to change it. You're the only person who can do that. I can't do that. If you think I have the power to change your bad habits, well, you're delusional. I don't have that power. I have only the ability to encourage you to go through process tonight. I have no power to reach into your heart and get you to change. You can do some business before God tonight. You can change tonight. But you have to decide to put yourself on the table and say, Lord, help me. All I can do is kind of be a guide. So you have to understand that. See, in the church, we think there's something magical happening, and I have some power, and I'm going to zap a lightning bolt across the room, and you're going to fall over, and suddenly everything's going to be okay. It's not going to work that way. If you can find some place that makes it work that way, go to them quickly and give me a call. I'll go to them quickly as well, as long as it really works. 30 years of ministry, I haven't seen it really work. But I mean, that would be wonderful if it would work. But you know what? It don't work. But this process of confessing, of examining ourselves, of taking it before God, of dealing with it, of really starting to learn health over illness, this does, by the grace of God, bring healing to the soul. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. So, anybody want to share with me any bad habits? You can even share with me a good habit. Give me a good or bad habit. Something you wrote down. Yes, Janet. There you go. Panicking and worrying. Yeah. The reason panicking and worrying is habit is that anything we habitually do. And so if panic worked once, maybe it'll work again. Maybe if I connected worrying, you know, by the way, when you worry, don't you feel powerful when you worry? Isn't it a weird thing, but when we worry, we feel powerful? Because you're over there worrying, and you feel all this energy inside. Oh. I mean, doesn't worry feel like a powerful energy? And you just have to believe with all that energy inside, it must some way or another be reaching out to the cosmos. twisting the universe. In fact, touching your spouse, touching your children, and that power of worry will transform them. Now, we baptize that because we call it prayerful worry. That's always nice, you know. And so, it does. And by the way, you know, the other emotion that feels like it has so much power, it just has to change people outside of us, anger, right? Anger makes you feel like Colossus. Oh, adrenaline's pumping. Everything is, this power has to extend past me. It must go into the world. But guess what? It doesn't. No one can feel your worry but you. No one feels your anger but you. But can it become addictive? Oh, yeah. I had a dear friend, 7th grade. He was getting picked on, you know. So this one bully would take him and dump him in the garbage trail. How many guys know what I'm talking about? Bully, garbage trail, basically being picked on. Anybody else? The rest of you were the bullies. Shame on you. Now, the thing is that, you know, this is where he was at. And so, you know, he got hearing about this thing called adrenaline and stuff. About 7th, 8th grade, they covered that in hell. And so he goes into gym class one day, and the coach is there. And, you know, he's been really building it up. He's got bitterness. I mean, he's gone from anger to hatred to bitterness. I mean, he is filled with holy wrath. And he says, okay, you know, you can wrestle anybody you want here. And so this person says, I want to wrestle him. Well, you know, we're talking 90-pound the Hulk, okay? And the gym teacher's going, no. He'll kill you. He already kills you on a regular basis. Why do you want to do this now? No. Him. So, the gym teacher, being a bit of a sadist, like most gym teachers in my life, said, okay, fine, and sat back to watch the slaughter. Now, the Hulk is over there going, this is a joke. How much adrenaline does the Hulk have racing through his system? None! 0! Zip! How much adrenaline does Mr. Anger have? Everything his body can produce, right? So the coach says, no, this little missile of anger goes over there. He clobbers this guy, floors him, pounds him into a ball. You know, it's the old ape beating upon the chest. Ah! Unfortunately, my friend learned anger works. And he began to develop a habit of creating a state of anger when he needed to go and get in confrontation. He became a rageaholic. Why? This was the beginning of a habit. When he didn't give in to anger, he felt powerless, weak, a victim. When he gave in to anger, he felt victorious, powerful, strong. And the problem is, all addictions, by the way, short-term victories cause us not to see long-term loss. Short-term victories, that's what begins the destructive habit. In the short term, it works. But the problem is, when it is made a habit of life, it destroys. And the problem is, we can't see long-term when we're young, can we? We've never been able to look down the pike. So all we know is the short term. And that's what begins to kill us. And we get so much, even though it doesn't work for us anymore, we keep saying, it will work. I know it works. It's worked before. I'll do it again. I've just got to find the magic again. But the problem is, we don't see that fundamentally our answer is not an answer. It's a problem. Anyway. Another habit, real quick. Yes, Gordon.
Leaving clutter around the house.
Leaving clutter around the house. Yes. See? That's because Mother was always there to pick it up. So it worked very well. Yes, it was very easy. See, she's enabling you, Gordon. I want you to know that. That's right. You know, leave clutter and it magically disappears. You know? It's like, you know, just leave the clutter and it disappears. It's gone. There's little leprechauns that come out and get all those socks off the floor. It's really amazing. So. All right, let's go look at the next thing. Good and bad habits. Good habits are hard to form and easy to live with. In other words, to actually form a good habit is hard. But once we've formed it, it's easy to live with because it leads to good results. Bad habits are easy to form, and they're hard to live with. Do you think we need a class so that people could build up the habit of gossiping? Anybody think we should start that here at Living Water? You think people need, you don't think we need that class? I mean, how to gossip, the best 10 ways to gossip, effective gossiping, gossiping about those you love, gossiping about those you hate. We don't need that class? Why don't we need that class? Why don't we need a class on gossiping? Ron, why don't we need a class on gossiping? It's built in, right? We started to gossip right away. We told our mother that guy in the white mask, he hit me. The thing is that the reality is that the bad stuff does. It's like going downhill. And we find it very easy to acquire the bad habits. And the bad habits seem to bring relief from the pain. And just like my friend who lost his temper, it seems to work. And it doesn't take a great deal of skill to lose one's temper. I mean, he made it into a science, but he really didn't have to. It happens pretty naturally. But how about the skill of blessing those who curse you? Would we need a class on that? But that'd be a hard habit to form, wouldn't it? Now, what we're talking about habit is doing it so much, so repetitively, that the very first thing when someone curses us, the first thing out of our mouth without thought would be a blessing. Boy, we need training on that, don't we? Why? Well, because moving in the direction of the kingdom of God, moving in the direction of sanity, moving in the way of health rather than of illness, that doesn't come very naturally. It's very hard. But once I really get to the place where it's automatic, I start finding there's great power and great joy and great freedom in this. And I like it. And it becomes rewarding. Again, the pleasure part of the brain is getting set off. And it becomes rewarding, and my life functions better. Isn't that amazing? Now, by the way, God gave us the commandments for our good. See, human beings, when I was a little boy, I was a very little boy, my aunt had a goldfish. And I was looking in the aquarium at the goldfish, and I said to myself, you know, that goldfish, it looks bored. I mean, all he can do is swim back and forth. It wasn't a very big aquarium. And over a few days, I built an emotional bond with the goldfish. And I said, you know, I bet the goldfish like to go on a walk. You know, go out and see the world. I mean, all he gets to do is see this little tank. So I'm just going to take the goldfish, put it in my pocket, take him out there and let him look at all the trees and everything else, you know. Then I'll take him back, I'll put him in the fish tank. Oh, I grab the goldfish, and goldfish and me, we go for a walk. And I was showing him the grass, put him out in the grass, you know. Hey, look, a goldfish. There's a tree. I was having him experience all kinds of things. He never saw that in the aquarium. Now, he seemed to be panicking. You know, seemed to really be getting distressed. I didn't really understand why. So I blew air on him. You know, that would help. It didn't seem to help. It didn't seem to like me blowing air on him. Oh, I said, okay, I better take the goldfish back. Well, I took the goldfish back, put him in the tank. He wasn't doing too well. He was kind of like comatose. He was like floating at the top of the tank. I couldn't understand that. I went to my aunt. I said, Aunt Louise, what? I got the goldfish for a walk. Somehow she didn't let me finish the rest of my story. Just kind of ended right there, you know. Panic, run in. That's when I learned goldfish are supposed to stay in water. See, that was an important life commandment. Keep the goldfish in the water. Well, you see, human beings are like goldfish. We were meant to swim in God and in God's will and in God's life, and that's where we live, and that's where we thrive, and that's when we function. But we were a bunch of goldfish who got it in our heads, you know, I bet there's a better life outside the aquarium. And so we flipped ourselves right outside God's aquarium. And ever since then, things have not been going so good for us. The bottom line is, it's in those good habits that we'll find life. It's in those good habits that we are in conformity to our humanity. It's there that we'll find sanity, and not outside the aquarium. And yes, I feel sad for the goldfish even today. Well, how do we get a strong home? See, basically most of us, I came from an alcoholic home. My dad was the nicest guy in the world when he was sober, but he was never sober. So I just kind of took that on faith, primarily. Eventually, I would know my dad is sober, and I would know people that knew him sober, and it would in fact prove out that when my dad was sober, he was an extremely nice guy. But growing up, it wasn't at all nice. And as I grew up in that home, and every night an argument, and every night a conflict, and every night insanity, I said to myself, when I grow up, I'm going to have a home that is sane so I can be happy. That makes sense? When I grow up, I'm going to have a home, I'm going to have a family, I'm going to have this place that isn't safe, has never been safe my whole growing up, but I'm going to have this place where it's going to make me happy. And the problem is, when I started off, I came to the relationships, and I came to, boyfriend-girlfriend relationships, I came to other relationships, I came to marriage, and I came as a vampire. I came putting my teeth into the relationship and saying, I need blood. Give me blood. I'm dying. I must devour blood. Give me blood, marriage. That doesn't work. That's not healthy. But that's where we thought marriage would save us. We thought marriage would heal us. We thought all the wounds of childhood would be taken care of by the love of another human being in our life. The worst case is when you get two people married like that and they're mutual vampires. There's the image. Two vampires sucking on each other. Now that's productive, isn't it? Some people say it's better to use two ticks there. Just two ticks. You don't get anywhere. But the reality is, a large part of our society, they tell us that. Doesn't that what Hollywood tells us? You have movie after movie. Miserable single A. Miserable single B. Boy meets girl. Happy couple forever. Magic. Two miserable people. Add them together, equal one happy marriage. Now, how does that add up mathematically? You know what miserable plus miserable equals? Double miserable. And by the way, it's not a plus sign, it's a multiplication factor. The reality is strong homes, strong marriages, strong parents, strong relationships come from you and me understanding we have to be strong individuals. And as we become strong individuals and we come into the relationship with an emotional bank account ready to give out of our abundance that we have had and grown individually, and then, yes, does there become a multiplication factor for good, and is there an interdependence, and can the two people that are both coming in with health create things that one healthy person can't? Yes, but marriage was not designed by God to heal the wounds of childhood. Marriage was not designed by God to make us happy. We have to, now if I'm a person that knows how to be happy and another person that knows how to be happy, and you put two people that know how to be happy into a relationship, then the happiness can multiply. But you see the myth of it? So we're going to look, this first part really has to do, what does it take to have a healthy home? The first thing you have to understand, for you to have a healthy home, and I wish to God someone had told me this when I was 16, life would have been much more simple. The reality is, you have to be a healthy individual. And how do you become a healthy individual? That's the key. We're going to take a look at that. Well, the first habit is sanity. I have, in fact, prayed for my kids. I started praying for this when they were very young. Dear Lord, grant that my children might marry people who are sane and spiritual. I have this in all my prayer journals. And I put sanity ahead of spirituality because many times people get confused. I don't think you can have true spirituality without sanity. But have any of you noticed there's a lot of spiritual people around that seem crazy? It's okay. I know we're on holy ground, but has this ever crossed anyone else's mind outside me? It's like, I do want them to marry someone spiritual, but I'd like them to be sane. Okay? And there's something that, you don't want to judge anyone's spirituality, but there's just something a little crazy here. You ever notice that? Now, I want to tell you something. It is not true. The more crazy, the more spiritual. Now, some of you are under that illusion, okay? It's not the more irrational, the more crazy, the more stupid something is, the more spiritual. There is that kind of branch there in the church. Never forget, this was true. I was ministering to this guy in college. He came to me and he said, Norm, he'd been coming to me for weeks. He was really addicted to this girl. Had never talked to the girl. One of those strange relationships. But, he would look at the girl as she crossed campus, and he would just, he loved her from afar. He was just smitten, And so, he was there, and he was just, And so he said, I've got to have this girl. And so he started to pray, and he started to put out fleeces. I don't know how you do that without any sheep around. But anyway, the thing is, he started to do this, stuff, And so he came to me and he said, Norm, this girl, she's going to marry me. Wow, you talked to her? No, I haven't talked to her. Could you tell me how you know she's going to marry you? Since you didn't talk to her, I'm a little slow, so help me here. No, you have to say, I was really praying, and I saw all these passages, and it said, if you give, you get. And so I went, and I took every dime out of my bank account, which was $1,000, and I put a note on it, say, Dear God, I want Julie, and I put a rubber band about it, and I went down to the local church, and I put it right in the offering plate. And I know that you can't outgive God. Hallelujah, she's going to marry me by Saturday. I said, Dear brother, let's pray. Okay. Julie did not marry him by Saturday, and, he was out $1,000. But it looked really spiritual, didn't it? It was just obsessive-compulsive behavior mixed in with infatuation, but it looked really spiritual. He had baptized it. Can we all say that we've seen stuff like that happen somewhere in our experience in the church? Maybe not quite so extreme, right? Maybe sometimes we've been there. You know why? Because we're trying to figure out how to get God to be the genie in the bottle. We're trying to figure out how to rub the bottle so he'll cough up what we want. And you know what? God is not going to be your genie. Sorry to tell you that. He will be your God, but he will not be your genie. Well, what is sanity? Sanity is the ability to tell the difference between the real and the unreal. To have realistic expectations of myself, others in life, and to perceive things as they are without illusions. What is a realistic expectation? Well, I have had friends that have been addicts for years, and there are two types of addicts. There is the addict in recovery, and there's the addict not in recovery. And then there's the addict pretending to be in recovery. All three. Now, until my addict friends get into recovery, there is a certain rule that you must understand. All addicts lie. Let's face it. Mom says, well, what were you up to? I was drinking vodka, I was drinking beer, and I smoked some pot. Now, is that going to work? That's not going to work. What's the first thing you learn as an addict? Your mother says, what have you been up to? I was down at church, we were praying, and I was, cleaning up the baptistry. Because that's what she wants to hear, right? God bless you, son. Addicts learn the truth doesn't work. People try to get you off drugs if you start talking about the truth. They start messing in your life. They start making it miserable. You have to go get high just to deal with all the nagging. So you see, when I'm working with an addict, I'm a realist. I'm sane. They lie. I'm not surprised. Gravity works. Addicts lie. Now, some friends of mine who haven't worked with addicts just had this phone. Another pastor calls me. I wish he had called me before. He says, hi, we've been working with an addict. Really? He's been in jail 9 years, so he's been straight. Well, that does help him stay straight. It's kind of hard usually to get inside jail. But, yeah, okay. He's been out a week, yeah. So, we're having some problems. Well, what's the problem? Well, he doesn't want to go to any recovery meetings because he said God healed him. That's cool. And he also took we gave him like $500 cash. We put him in an apartment. We gave him a car, but now he sold the car. And he's not answering our phone calls. And I go, oh. But he told us that we could trust him. Yep, he did. I said, I need to tell you a truth of the universe. What's that? All addicts lie. He got mad. Of course he got mad. It was his first time down the road. Reality is, gravity works. Addicts lie. Now, it's not right they lie. I can be sad about their lying, but I can't get emotionally overwhelmed by it anymore. Why? Well, I've been lied to for 30 years, so after a while you get kind of used to it, okay? And if I don't want to be lied by addicts, I just don't need to minister to addicts. It's pretty easy. Just avoid them. But if I decide I'm going to minister to addicts, I'm going to have to face the fact that until they go from addict not in recovery to addict in recovery, they're going to be lying to me. Oh, I can tell them this. I usually tell them this. I know you're going to lie to me, so could we just cut it off from here and you just tell me the truth? We'll just pretend you're lying, okay? But that's part of it. Now, by the way, do you have some expectations of people in your life? Have you ever gotten mad at a person over and over and over and over and over and over again over the same thing? In fact, have they failed to pick up their socks 52 weeks in a row? Oh, yeah. And yet somehow we think maybe if we mention it to them the 53rd time. Now, that doesn't mean we can't express our feelings. What I'm saying is, after a while, you know what? I expect the socks to be on the floor. I expect my cat, Mr. Moot, to be crying at my side at 5:30 in the morning. You know why? He does it every morning. If he doesn't do it, I go looking. I figure he died. Realistic expectations for good or bad. I expect what people really do. I don't expect what people should do. See, this is sanity. And by the way, my anger level is directly related to my expectations. The more I expect and the more you fail me, the more angry I get. If my expectations are more realistic, then I get less elevated and it's easier for me to maintain self-control. Sanity reflects emotional maturity, where appropriate emotions are felt without the loss of self-control or rationality. This is what it is. I have a friend who betrays me. I can sanity appropriately doesn't stuff it, doesn't deny that it hurts. Appropriate says, I grieve over the fact that my friend betrayed me. But I don't give up my self-control to my grief. I don't say, I cannot handle the pain of this grief, so therefore I'm going to go and drink some vodka to make my grief go away. I'm not going to go out and try to have sex with somebody to make the grief go away. I'm not going to go out and try to run my friend over in a parking lot in order to make the grief go away. You see what I'm saying? Now the turtle says, I do better than that. I push it so far down that I don't even know I feel any grief. Let's remember, turtles, all turtles live in microwaves. All you're doing is increasing the pressure so that when that shell blows, and no shell is so strong it won't blow, the wipeout is going to hurt a lot more people, and it's going to hurt you a lot more badly. You're going to go postal. And everyone, it'll always be over some little thing. It'll be, that's the straw that broke the camel's back. I don't know why we pick on camels. I don't really know what that has to do with. Anyway, the thing is that the reality is we really do have to feel it. We have to acknowledge the fact that I grieve. Do I grieve that my addict friend lied to me? Yeah, I don't get angry over it, but I grieve over it. But I grieve over it without giving away my rationality. I grieve with it without giving away my sanity. I grieve over it without losing control. Because you see, ultimately, you do not have any control over anyone but you. This is our 100% rule in family life skill. You only have control over you. You are in control of what you think and what you do and what you say, and you're not in control of what anyone else says or does. Now, the good news is you're not responsible for them either. You're not responsible for them losing their temper. You're not responsible for them using pornography. You're not responsible for them drinking. You're not responsible for any destructive habit. You're not responsible if they commit suicide. No one ever caused anyone to commit suicide. That person chose to relieve their pain through an act of suicide. Now, that's greatly sad, and I feel very bad. I've had some dear friends commit suicide. I mean, I don't speak from a person who hasn't had one of my best friends jump off a bridge. I understand that, and I grieve over Joe's death. I love Joe like a brother, but you know what? Joe was responsible for Joe's suicide. And just Joe. Nobody else. And by the way, that's part of it, is that the person committing suicide is trying to have power and control over you by saying, even after my death, I will make them grieve. I will make them feel. I will make them do something. I will win this argument. They don't really have that power, by the way. We don't control anyone but ourselves. So that's the first, that's sanity. Now, in your book, I want you to look at these questions. Do you have a pattern of life that always leads to a bad or painful result? Now, I know it's holy ground, you want to lie. It's okay. It's okay. We're going to tell the truth here. Okay? No one is seeing it but God and you, and I hate to tell you this. This is really bad news for some of you. God already knows. Okay? So all you're doing is trying to bring up this to the service of your consciousness. God is not going to be shocked by your answer. Okay? So do you have a pattern of life that always leads to a bad or painful result? List one of them here, just to try to get hold of one of those. Why you continue to have a pattern of life. I just talked to a friend a week or so ago, and he was saying, I don't pray and I don't read the Bible. And I said, why not? He said, well, I'm afraid if I do, then God will really touch my heart and I'll have to be obedient, and I don't want to be obedient. Well, the reality is he'd gotten in touch. I could have talked to him forever about, I could have tried to beat him into reading the Bible and praying. You're a Christian. You're supposed to read the Bible and pray. I could have tried to guilt him into it. But the thing is, he had a root issue that was deeper than the manifestation. And that root issue is really what it is. What's your root issue? Why do you hang on to this habit that's not working and always destructive, but why do you continue to hold on to it? What reward do you get through this habit? Or what relief from pain do you get from this habit? Do you consistently disappoint people in a particular set of circumstances? Do you see a pattern happening? You know you're going to be angry if this person you're angry with them every week over the same issue. What is it? Are your expectations realistic in that set of circumstances? And what step could you take for a more realistic life? Go ahead and answer those questions. We'll give you a few moments. 1 minute. Okay. Hopefully you were able to get hold of some things there that are patterns. The first step in breaking a pattern, the first step of moving away from insanity, is to recognize it as insane. Most of our insane habits, we have never said to ourselves, this is crazy. And we have never tried to understand why it's there. Now, we have some classes called Family Life Skills. What you're getting tonight is some information that can help you. But I'm going to tell you right now, to change takes time. We do not believe in the holy zap or the miraculous seminar. We think you can be given good information and you can give a process tonight. But to really do something real, it's going to take time. And Family Life Skills has been designed, we're going to talk more about it later, has been designed to help you take the things you're beginning to hear tonight and expand on them. For those of you that have gone to Family Life Skills, tonight's seminar provides some reinforcement, some new tools, a fresh way to look at some stuff, all of that stuff. So it's beneficial to both groups. But I want you to think about it. If you haven't said, boy, I've tried to change before, and I've never been able to change. One time, my wife really wanted me to make a waterbed for her. Really did. So I said, okay, I'm going to take the waterbed. We had this waterbed out in the garage for a long time, so I took all the planks of wood, I put them in our bedroom, I tore down the old bed, I got everything all set up. This was an old waterbed where they still had the balloon in the middle type thing, you know. And I went looking for my toolbox. I couldn't find my toolbox. Somebody had taken my toolbox. It wasn't a great big massive toolbox anyway, but someone had taken my toolbox. I couldn't find my toolbox. So I said, no, I'm going to make this bed today. I went to the kitchen and I got the universal tool, first given by God to Adam, a butter knife. It was straight from heaven. And I went in and I, with nothing but a butter knife, began to build a waterbed. All I've got to do is put these bolts in here and tighten these things up. I'm sure we can make it. 8 hours later, I have myself a waterbed. I am proud of my waterbed. I have worked. I am sweat driven. I mean, my hand is bleeding. Okay. And I go and cry out the hall in victory. Because, of course, I had closed the door and said, don't come in here until I'm done. I'm going to work magic here with the magic butter knife. And I opened the door in victory, and I said, Terry, come see our waterbed. Coco, my faithful dog, who had not happy about the door being closed all day, he comes running in, leaps into the new waterbed. At which point, the two sides fall off. And I yelled down the hall, no matter, it's not done yet. A week later, no waterbed. A week later, we get my father-in-law to come down. Now, my father-in-law is Mr. Gadget. Every tool under heaven is in this man's garage, okay? So he comes down with very big toolboxes. You know, RoboCop. Puts it in there. And I say, can I help? He looks at me with disdain and says, no. Can I watch? Quietly. Well, what he does, he goes in here, looks at this thing, decides the original design isn't very good, pulls out his old drill, has this thing, and he starts drilling a hole right in the wood. He has some other bolt. Within 15 minutes, you have a waterbed that will survive the next nuclear war. Okay? This thing is so well tied up, everything else, he closes up, gone. What's the difference? Did he have as much passion as I had to make a waterbed? No. Did he care? Was he going to sleep in the waterbed? No. Did he want to please Terry as much as I did? No. He just had better tools. And some of us have been trying to build a good marriage with butter knives. And we got bloody hands, we got sweaty backs, we got frustration, and we've been doing everything a person can do with a butter knife. And I know, I don't want to speak evil of butter knife, but there are limitations. And what Family Life Skills does is it gives you the tools. And when you combine the tools with the passion, you can start building a better home. That's what it's all about. It can help you become sane. Well, stability. Have you ever noticed that you have sane moments and then months of insanity? Have you ever noticed that you've been going, you say, I think I've got this thing down, I've got my head on straight, I had a great devotional time, I really think it's going to be okay. And then someone else wakes up in the house and messes up a perfectly good morning. Have you ever felt very sane until someone else talked to you? You're sure that insanity is infectious, The thing is, the capacity, stability is the capacity of a person to quickly return to equilibrium. Equilibrium is balance. It's like when a boat rocks back and forth, it then comes back to a stable position, or to their original position of sanity after being impacted by a sudden circumstance. When bad things happen, they impact us, but then, yes, okay, we have self-talk. We can talk to ourselves. And by the way, we all have self-talk. How many people here, somewhere in their life, got angry and said to themselves, you stupid idiot? That's self-talk. How many people, when someone cut off the person in front of you, called them something? That's self-talk. Okay? We are talking to ourselves all the time. It's just that most of our unguided self-talk is negative. Most of that self-talk, where it's not guided, becomes something where we either abuse ourselves verbally or we abuse others. Have you ever got yourself into a total rage thinking about a problem of a person? I mean, they don't even know what's going on, And so you've been thinking all day, they did this, and when they did this, they were rejecting me. And boy, they don't love me. And, they were planning this whole thing to make me feel horrible, blah, 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 right? And it happened in the morning, You left the house, and they didn't kiss you. You're sure they're suing you for divorce. You build it up by the time you walk in the door. They didn't kiss me this morning. They're going to leave me. Can you believe, after all I've done for them, they're going to leave me? And you have created this whole illusion in your mind. And you have, they've called you 3 times in a day, and you're not going to answer it because they're going to tell you they're going to divorce you. You just know that, okay? You could just tell that, And so by the time you walk in the door, and they say, hi, hon, how's it going? How dare you talk to me that way? Huh? Now, of course, by this time, you set them off. You just triggered them. So they decide, hey, he's got a 9, I can be at a 9, I can match that, no problem. Blah! And soon you have 2 people screaming at each other. The kids are in the corner going, does this what it means to grow up? But anyway, the thing is, we lose our stability very quickly, don't we? We have sanity one moment, and something comes in, some little circumstance, and we begin interpreting it, and we begin dwelling on it, we begin building it up, and it's all messed up. Stability is where I know how to bring myself back. Wait a minute, just yesterday night she told me she loved me, and, really a lack of a kiss in the morning doesn't mean a whole lot, and she did say she got a cold from one of the kids. Maybe she was trying not just to infect me. In other words, I start talking to myself sanity. Stability is I remain consistent and steady. I do not decide, God, you didn't answer the prayer, so I'm going to commit a really big sin to get back at you. See, that's crazy, isn't it? But we do it. But consistency is saying, Lord, I don't understand why you didn't answer the prayer, but I know there's more sanity in obedience than disobedience, and I'm only going to hurt myself. And so therefore, I'm not going to do that. I am going to ask questions. I'm going to deal with my disappointment. I'm going to tell you I'm disappointed, but I'm not going to give up my sanity. Stability is the ability of a person's sanity and character to remain unchanged in the presence of a problem. Now, by the way, we can describe that here, but according to our process, it takes 3 years of disciplined focus, of training, a spiritual training of trying to acquire sanity, of trying to acquire stability, of prayerfully learning the disciplines that lead to sanity and stability, that it happens inside. Does anyone understand that changing inside is not as easy as changing up here? You guys know that? Changing up here is kind of easy. We at least can tell ourselves we believe the truth. But you know what? It doesn't change down here, does it? Down here is still filled with the virus and with the wrong programming and what we call life commandments that are still driving us, that are crazy life commandments. You didn't get those overnight. You're not going to be able to dump them overnight. It's not perfection, but direction that's important. The question is not whether you're perfect today. You're not. I'm not. No one is. The question is, what direction are we heading in? Are we heading in the direction of health? Are we heading in the direction of sanity? Are we heading in the direction of stability? Are we processing this? Are we getting rid of the stuff that makes us crazy and insane and makes us unstable? By the way, I don't know about you, this is my testimony. Every disastrous mistake I have made in my life, I have made at an unstable moment. Anybody else give testimony of that? It was that total thing of feeling so unstable, of going crazy inside, of thinking I had to do something radical. That, by the way, red flags. When you think you have to do something radical, call a friend and have them talk you out of it. Okay? Because very rarely do you have to do anything radical. Most of the time, radical leads to destruction. Don't have so much faith that acting crazy is going to solve your problem. Most of the time, acting crazy just adds to your problem. And in my life, over 30 years, if I had to go back in a time machine, it would be back at that moment where I was feeling most unstable. I'd walk up to Norm at that moment and say, listen to me, calm down, and get your head on straight. Because you're about ready to cause great pain. That, by the way, is part of what you have to learn to do. That's called parenting yourself. See, each of us have a hurt child inside. That hurt child inside, when they get scared, frightened, disturbed, hurt, they act out. Just like kids act out when they feel those things. And you are now responsible to be the parent that's going to nurture that child, care for that child, guide that child, and keep that child from hurting itself. You do not hand the kid the steering wheel of your life. You do not hand control of your life over the hurt child inside. I do not allow my 3-year-old to drive my car. That's what we have to learn. That's stability. Look at your sheet there. You have again an exercise. Colossians 2:7. For even though I am absent in body, nevertheless I am with you in spirit, rejoicing to see your good discipline and the stability of your faith in Christ. I'm going to suggest to you that stability comes through discipline. Stability comes when I say, even though I don't feel like having my prayer time this morning, I'm going to have my prayer time. Even though I don't feel like drawing near to God, I'm going to draw near to God. Even though I don't feel all these different things, I don't feel like going to work, I'm going to go to work. Even though I don't feel like, talking to my spouse about the problem and talking in a reasonable way, I feel just like getting up, packing my bags, and leaving, I'm nevertheless going to go and I'm going to dialogue, I'm going to seek reconciliation. In other words, discipline. There are certain disciplines of life that we have to acquire. These are spiritual disciplines, they are mental disciplines, they are emotional disciplines. These disciplines. And by the way, you need to think, what disciplines do I have in my toolbox to help me remain stable? Some questions. On a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate your own stability at this moment? On a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate it on average? And this is just taking all the significant people in your life and kind of averaging it in your mind. It doesn't have to be scientific for you accountants in the group. How stability are the significant people in your life? In other words, are you living in the middle of a group of people that are not very stable? When you become unstable, upset, or out of control, what are the main emotions you're feeling? What do you think makes those emotions so high? What activities help you stabilize after becoming upset? Why do you wait till becoming upset to do these things? On a regular basis, how kind are you to yourself? By the way, one of the ways to remain stable is to love yourself. One of the ways to remain stable is on a regular basis, treat yourself to a kind act. Sometimes we are worse to ourselves than anyone has ever been. See, I was, out of my childhood, I became what they call a thumper, which is when you're in a bad situation, and this happened when I was growing up, I would hear all the fighting inside. Like every child, I would assume, well, they're fighting because I messed up, I was born, and when I was born, I made them miserable, and now they're suffering because I was born, and if only I wasn't born, then mom and dad would be happy. Normal logic for a child. And it wouldn't stop. They would keep yelling, and they keep screaming, and there'd be all this stuff going on, and I'd go crazy, and so I wanted to hurt myself because I knew that it was my fault, all this insanity had come into the house, and so I would start hitting my head against the wall. And by hitting myself against the wall, I do two things. One, the noise of hitting your head drowns out the noise of the fighting, so now you can't hear the fighting anymore. That feels better, because now I can't hear mom and dad fighting. And the second thing is I'm hurting myself, and since I'm hurting myself, justice is being done, and the person responsible for all the unhappiness in this house is being punished, and so we're acquiring two things. One, justice is being acquired, and two, I don't have to hear this noise that's disturbing me so much. So I became what they call a thumper. And the problem is, I took that into adulthood. Do you think I upset a few people that I was in personal relationships with when we had a confrontation and I started to beat my head against the wall? Yeah, they thought that was not too good. What are you doing? But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to punish the person responsible for this. And I'm trying to drown out the pain inside, because what had triggered it, by the way, I was feeling all of that. See? So you see, all of us have behaviors that we do after we become upset. How did I stop being a thumper? I faced what in the heck was causing the thumping. I faced the illusions of the childhood. I wasn't responsible for that insanity. It wasn't in my control. I didn't need to punish myself. I had to process all that. Did I get to process that within 24 hours? No, it took me a few years. Was I a born-again Christian? Yeah, I think so. In fact, I think it was only Jesus that got me through all that. So when I'm talking to you about this stuff, this is not stuff that I don't know about from personal experience. This is real. Go ahead and work on it. What soul disciplines do you have which on a regular basis helps you build emotional and inner strength? Work on that for a few minutes, and then we'll go on. The American Standard upgraded in 1997. That's the New American Standard display condition. New American Universal, I think. Yeah, but no, this is a new one. This is 1997. That's just what it goes by in the computer program. But that's what it is. Yeah. Was done in 1967. NAS was 19. This is an updated version, 1997. I don't know, 95, 97. Not an accountant. 1 minute. Okay, I realize that you may not have time. Let me tell you right now what this goal is. This is to get you started. What I want you to do is try, by the end of the week, maybe Saturday, maybe Sunday, to open this book and take the time to more fully develop your answers. You have to understand that what I'm telling you is that the real answers, the real process, tonight is all about getting you started on something, not ending something. This is all about you beginning some type of process. Maybe you say, I am not ready to do family life skills. Okay. Be ready to work your way through this book I gave you tonight. Be ready to go through a process this weekend where you begin to think, and you begin the process, then you ask yourself some questions. Because you see, I'll tell you this, if you do nothing, you're going to stay exactly where you're at. See, what you're waiting for, well, I don't have to do anything. That person out there has to change, and that person out there has to change, and that person out there has to change. And when that person changes, and that person changes, and that person changes, I'll change. No, you won't. Because those people in your life have no power to change you. You may enjoy their change. You may feel pleasure from some change they have, but you at core will not change. The only person that can be involved in your change is you interacting with truth, the Holy Spirit, and your soul in a combination, a process to where you change. I'm inviting you to that change. I'm inviting you to take the steps in that change. That's all. That's all I can do tonight. That's all I have the power to do. I can simply be like John the Baptist and say, there he is, seek him. Seek change. Seek the one who can change. And that takes us to spirituality. Spirituality, to begin with, is an inner sense of something greater than our own self, recognition of a meaning to existence that transcends one's immediate circumstances. In other words, there's more to life than the 70 years that you and I live here. It means that there's more than what we see. It means there's something real beyond what we can know. And so what I want us to do is come to that recognition and understand that that's real. Now, by the way, the reason I cover sanity and stability before spirituality is that if we try to touch spirituality before we are sane and stable, we have a tendency to pervert spirituality. In fact, we begin to make God crazy as we are. In fact, we start imposing some of our false beliefs on God. We start twisting God into our image. We're not willing to accept God for who he is, and so we make him after our own likeness, after our own image. And so the reality of that whole thing is that, yes, God will be working in our life in order to make us sane and make us stable, but we need to have some solid measure of that. Never perfection, but direction. But we need to have a good measure of sanity and a good measure of stability before we enter deeply into spirituality. Spirituality is that sense, but there's something greater. It is a specific way of living.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, please let a friend know about it today. If you have any questions relating to today's message, you can send an email to livingwaterchannel@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we hope to hear from you soon.